Revved Up 906 podcast, a Detroit Pistons podcast to be exact. And I'm Hudson.
And I'm Ryan.
Before we get into episode number 9 of season 3, you guys know the deal. Make sure to like and subscribe. And if you are new to the channel, make sure to comment below. We would love to know what your guys' thoughts and opinions are as we go through today's episode. If you want to share the podcast and happen to like this podcast, make sure to hit the arrow button right below the video. You can share our channel to Snapchat, Facebook, Instagram, just in case you want to let the people know what you're listening to, and some of our thoughts and opinions are sometimes worth listening to. I'm not sure all the time, but yeah, make sure to share us. Let's get into today's episode number 9 of season 3. And today we have an interesting one for you, one that I've been excited for a while. Today we are going to be talking about AI bold predictions for the Detroit Pistons in the next 10 years. So AI looked at each and every Detroit Pistons player and talked about bold predictions for the next 10 years of whether they're not in the NBA anymore, or they won an NBA championship, they went to a different team, went to China to play overseas, or just plain out got cut and became business people, or some players maybe became coaches in the next couple of years. We are going to talk about it. Ryan, as far as like a Cade Cunningham or Tobias Harris, what would be your like 10-year prediction? Would Cade be an MVP, or would Tobias Harris be a coach for Duke University? Like, what are you kind of looking at as far as like our personal like predictions?
See, I hope Cade would get an MVP, but I don't think he would if he's playing in Detroit for his career. So with that being said, he's probably going to be at least a 5 to 8 time All-Star, probably has made multiple deep playoff runs, gotten to the Eastern Conference Finals, hasn't gotten past, but is like decently one of the secretly best players in the league. Tobias Harris probably out of the league, retiring around 5 or 6 years from now.
Yeah.
And it's just like he's just living his life and tasting wine and has a vineyard and like something like that.
Yeah. And I could see like Malik Beasley being like a preacher one day. He's so like he just talks very fluently, very passionate. I could see like Jaden Ivey being a businessman for like a sports management company, maybe being the owner, like just some of these weird things. And AI is funny because it gets pretty out there as far as predictions. So make sure to comment below during today's episode, like if you agree with some of these hot takes from AI. Let's get into the first one. Let's not start with Cade Cunningham. I want to wait on that one. Let's go to Tobias Harris. In 10 years, he will still be getting paid, but now a bench warmer. It says, hear me out. At 42, Harris is still somehow signing contracts. He's the new Udonis Haslem, an aging vet, beloved in the locker rooms, but barely getting off the bench. The Tobias tax becomes his meme for overpaid players. I don't hate that for Tobias. I don't know if he'll stay till 42. Like I could see in the next 3 years, he's like a Udonis Haslem. Like he's getting up there. But Ryan, what are your thoughts on Tobias Harris being the next Udonis Haslem?
Honestly, I don't see it. I like my fine wine tasting and owns a vineyard. I like that route for him.
I do see that.
Because I don't, he definitely could be a Udonis Haslem type player, but we also have to keep in mind Udonis Haslem, no disrespect at all, because I love him, but he wasn't like an all-around premier pro talented player. He was a very good NBA player, but he wasn't like some MVP caliber player every single season. He was just the kind of guy that when you needed him, he'd step up. When you needed a couple minutes here and there, he'd fill those minutes. It wasn't like he was content. He wasn't fighting his contract. He wasn't wishing he was on another team. I'm sure he wished he was on another team at any point in time, but he was just cool being there and doing his job. Tobias Harris is kind of like that. I don't think he's ever really wanted to leave any
Yeah.
situation that he's been in because majority of the time he's been traded. But I don't know if I see Tobias Harris being the next Udonis Haslem. I see
Yeah.
maybe the next Harrison Barnes in the terms of does Harrison Barnes deserve how much money he's getting paid right now? That's a debate. I do like Harrison Barnes a lot, though. He is a very good player, but it is kind of a debate. Like, why are we paying him that much money when now I know when I say we, I'm saying NBA we, not NBA, not like Pistons we. But still, like Harrison Barnes is like way up here, and we're sitting there going, a lot of us would go like he should be probably around where Tobias Harris is at right now, but he is exceeding that by a lot. But no, I don't know if I see Tobias being the next Udonis Haslem.
It's hilarious like how in depth the AI got like the nickname Tobias Tax because he's overpaid. I just think that's hilarious. Like, where does like okay, I guess, but like Tobias Harris also pretty much has earned his way through his whole career. Perennial starter, really from the beginning with the Bucks. And the thing with Udonis Haslem is Udonis was happy just to start for the Miami Heat for like 3 seasons in the early 2000s after I believe Shaq's stint with the Miami Heat. So it's like they're a little bit different, but I also can see, Tobias Harris riding the bench for a couple years, just kind of racking up contracts. And then, of course, being pretty fancy, drinking the wine. I could also see him do a podcast one day. He's good with his words. I can see him doing a podcast. Next is Tim Hardaway Jr. and AI's bold prediction of where they see him at in 10 years. And this one is a good one. Prediction: Tim Hardaway Jr. is retired and running a sneaker brand for his NBA Suns. Hardaway leaves the league quietly by 36, but his business acumen thrives. He starts a brand called Legacy Kicks that designs custom shoes for the kids of NBA legends. So basically, like LeBron James, NBA legend. Tim Hardaway Jr. goes to Bryce James and is like, hey, I'm going to create you a shoe brand and it's going to make millions. That's what Tim Hardaway Jr. That's what AI thinks Tim Hardaway Jr. is going to be doing in retirement. Ryan, what do you think? This one's kind of funny.
I can see Tim Hardaway Jr. probably creating his own brand or company. I can see
Totally.
that. But legacy, I don't know about that. That's a weird name for shoes. Especially when your shoes compared to like Nike. Well, actually, what would happen to Nike or even Jordan or all those companies at that point in time? Because I'm sorry, from a legacy standpoint, we'd rather stick with what has been true with those shoe brands than legacy kicks. No offense to
Yeah.
Tim Hardaway Jr., but I don't know if I see that. I see the brand part. I see the company part. I don't know if I see him going out there and signing all these legendary
Yeah.
players' kids. That's a little random.
Isn't
Um,
that funny?
but yeah, it is funny. It is funny. It really is.
Oh, it's like, how did AI even come up with that? What is like what? Okay, pretty cool. The next player is Marcus Sasser, and AI's bold prediction in the next 10 years for Marcus Sasser. This is one of the more normal ones. Prediction: a reliable backup point guard for a contender. Sasser carves out a 10 plus year NBA career as a defensive pest and spot up shooter for elite teams. Think Mario Chalmers, but without the rings. Fans will appreciate him, but his name won't trend often. Ryan, this is one of the more better ones. And actually, like, that would be a great career for Marcus Sasser. Like, I'd be very happy for him if he did that. Kind of like Mario Chalmers or Ish Smith. That'd be a great career for him. That seems more reasonable to me. How about you?
I definitely see an Ish Smith out of Marcus Sasser. Obviously, he doesn't have the size that a lot of the players do have. He has the length. I don't know if a lot of you fans out there know this, but Marcus Sasser's wingspan is actually gigantic. It's
Yeah.
actually it's longer. His arm length is longer than his height, which is absurd because he's not very tall. But I do see the Ish Smith route with Marcus Sasser, where everybody knows who it is, and he's like a journeyman. But at the same time, it's not like he's a bad player. He's just gets moved around a lot. I can definitely see that. And honestly, maybe it's a little more on the bolder side, not personality wise at all, but definitely it could be on the track of like a Patrick Beverly in the sense that Patrick Beverly, phenomenal on the defensive side of the ball. Sasser is great on defense, and they can both score if they have to. Marcus Sasser definitely more talented in the scoring department than Patrick Beverly, but needless to say, I could see Marcus Sasser having an Ish Smith or Patrick Beverly type career, given certain situations and opportunities that present itself.
Here's the next bold prediction, and it's for Ron Holland and AI's bold prediction for where he is at in 10 years. Prediction: Ron Holland is a bust in the NBA, but an NCAA champion coach. Holland struggles to adapt to the NBA game and is out of the league by 27. Years later, he reemerges as a college basketball coach, leading Duke basketball to multiple Final Fours. Pistons are left wondering, what if? What if Ron Holland had a great NBA career? In real life, I think we'll be pretty happy with the results we get from Ron Holland. But in the AI world, he has a great college career as an NBA, as a NCAA head coach. Ryan, your thoughts? Does Ron Holland give a coach vibe to you?
No, honestly, no.
No.
And that's no disrespect. I just don't see that. I mean, he didn't
Right.
even go to play at the college level. He went to G League Ignite. So he didn't even take the normal college route per se.
Yeah.
So he really would have no experience with having feet in the water in terms of the college life, in terms of coaching and that lifestyle. Um, but not that he would be a bad coach or anything. I think he could be a decent coach, but I don't know if I see him coaching. I see, honestly, if I were to say something outside of basketball, I would see him as like a regional salesman, like, or he owns his own car dealership or something like that, versus like a college basketball coach, and let alone a Duke basketball coach. Like
Yeah.
that's pretty high up there, and that's no disrespect, but that's a high level that you have to be at, because all because of Coach K. But I don't know if I see him as a coach. I definitely see the owning a car dealership before a head coach for Ron Holland.
The next one is the long awaited Isaiah Stewart bold prediction and what AI thinks Isaiah Stewart will do in the next 10 years. This is a good one, but make sure to comment below your thoughts on this. Prediction: a beloved journeyman with one epic playoff moment. Beef Stew never becomes a star, but his toughness makes him a fan favorite across 5 different teams. He has a legendary 20-point, 20 rebound game in the playoffs at age 31, cementing his legacy as a role player hero. I could see him being a good player for a playoff team, trying to, make some big wins, but that's pretty funny. Role player legend, a journeyman of many myths and legends. What are your
I
thoughts?
honestly, I think I would see him teaming up with LeBron on LeBron's tail end, last couple of years of his career, just because I think LeBron actually has a soft spot for Stu, even
Yeah.
though the whole incident happened. I think there is a soft spot there. Plus, it would just be hilarious to see those two playing together, given the
Oh
fact that
yeah.
Stu wanted to rip LeBron's head off. But no, and honestly, could be given that a little bit. like Charles Oakley-ish with LeBron.
Oh
Not
yeah.
LeBron. Oh my goodness, it's been a long day. But Charles Oakley with Michael Jordan, Isaiah Stewart, and LeBron. I don't know. Could be something.
Yeah, that would
Hopefully
be
not.
cool.
I mean, I would like to see Stu excel with the Pistons. Um, but if that were to happen in a far off land, that would be pretty cool too. Just Isaiah Stewart throwing hands. I mean, he threw hands with Drew Eubanks. He's
Oh,
tried to
everybody.
throw hands with LeBron. Like it doesn't matter who it is. It could be Drew Eubanks, who's never going to see the court on a championship team, or no offense to you, but it's true. Or LeBron James, who's like king of the world, arguably the greatest player of all time. I disagree with that. I think he's one of the greatest, but he's not the greatest. I don't think there is the greatest. But needless to say, those two together, it would be like a tandem where you'd have the bruiser protecting LeBron on the tail end of his grandpa-ish career, and you'd have the whole gang just showing up. Yeah, I can see a Charles Oakley type role with Isaiah Stewart.
I'm almost surprised AI didn't put that in there because everyone knows the kind of beef they've had. It's gone over multiple games of them just kind of, just not being happy with each other. We still have Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren, and Cade Cunningham left, but our next bold prediction is for Asar Thompson and what AI has in store for him in the next 10 years. Asar Thompson's prediction is the Pistons Draymond Green. Asar never becomes an elite scorer, but his defense, playmaking, and versatility make him indispensable. Pistons fans debate if he's overrated, but coaches and analysts call him the heart of a team that reaches multiple Eastern Conference finals. Ryan, do you agree that maybe Asar Thompson will be the Draymond Green of the Pistons?
Honestly, it wouldn't shock me at all, but I would not go as far to say the heart of the team. I don't get that from him. He's a great guy, very nice, but I don't know if I see him being the heart and soul of the Pistons. If anything, you would expect like Draymond Green. Honestly, is not the heart and soul of the Golden State Warriors. It's Steph Curry, and outside of Steph Curry, organizational wise, it would be Steve Kerr before Draymond Green. No offense to Draymond Green, but go blue. But Asar Thompson, I can see kind of like the player that is just going to stay with us forever. And he's just going to be a good player for us, no matter what situation we're in, whether we're competing for championships or we're having a down year. I can just see Asar Thompson being one of those glue guys that just sticks it through. If
Totally.
anything, if we were going to throw the Udonis Haslem thing out there with anyone on the team, I could see it with Asar Thompson over Tobias Harris, just given the fact of their personalities and
Oh yeah.
their different capabilities on the court. I really see it more so with Asar Thompson than Tobias Harris, but like I still think Asar can hit a level to where Udonis Haslem obviously has never hit, but then also where a lot of players aren't even capable of hitting. I think Asar can still hit that level. Obviously, he's not going to be a perennial all-star or a first ballot Hall of Famer per se, but he's still, I think there's still a very high chance he's going to be a very good NBA player. But kind of like Tobias Harris, honestly, I can see Asar Thompson being the next Tobias Harris. That's what I can see. But I wouldn't go as far to say heart and soul like Draymond Green is to the Warriors. I just don't see that. But Tobias Harris being the next one, I could see that.
Well, and here's the thing with Asar. He does not have the personality of Draymond Green. And he's also not very aggressive like a Draymond Green would be, like kicking guys in the nuts like a scumbag Draymond is. Oh, did I say that out loud? But so Asar Thompson just kind of just doesn't have that same personality, but he definitely, I could see him one day be defensively an anchor for the defense. And now we're gonna talk about Jalen Duren and what AI believes will happen in the next 10 years. And Ryan, this is probably one of my favorite ones. I know I've been saying that about a couple, but this is just plain out good for Jalen Duren. Jalen Duren's bold prediction for the next 10 years is he will be a Hall of Famer with 2 championships. Duren becomes a defensive anchor for a dynasty. But wait, it's not for the Detroit Pistons. After signing with the Lakers in free agency in 2029, he becomes a finals MVP, leaving Pistons fans bitter for decades. And may I add, it's not crazy for Detroit Pistons fans to be bitter. We've experienced KCP win a championship, Reggie Jackson, and a couple others. And I've always kind of been like, I'm happy for KCP, but Reggie Jackson, he really had to go out and win a championship. That just kind of sucks. Ryan, what do you think? Do you see him going to a team like the Lakers? Because that's not who I would really think for him.
I can see it just because of um, just because of how Dwight Howard left the
Yeah,
Rockets and left the Magic and just that whole Dwight Howard-esque feel. I can see that happen with um, I can see that happen with Jalen Duren. Now,
yeah.
Lakers, I would hate it if he won
Oh yeah,
2 rings with the Lakers. Honestly,
anger.
if he won rings with the Lakers, Bulls, or Celtics, I'd be
Knicks.
fuming. Knicks too. Actually, throw the Knicks in there. Those 4 in particular, I'd
Oh
be
yeah,
fuming because I'd be like, "What the heck? Why
furious.
couldn't you have done this with us? Like, why?"
Yep.
But like any other team, I'm like, okay, cool. But those 4, I'm like, oh, okay. Why'd you have to go and win a championship with the Lakers? Like, we don't like them. Like, why are we going to the Lakers? But
Yeah.
otherwise, I can see him having like a Dwight Howard-esque career following his stint with the Pistons if there were to come to an end. I don't want it to come to an end personally, but who's to say what happens with Jalen Duren?
Yeah, and I remember like growing up always being bitter about players leaving the Pistons and seeing Richard Hamilton with the Bulls and Ben Gordon with the 10 different teams he played on and Brandon Jennings going back to the Bucks and playing on a couple different teams and Ish Smith going back to the Wizards after his time with the Detroit Pistons and just like Rodney Stuckey playing for the Pacers. Like I was always upset when those guys left the teams to, left the Pistons to play for other teams. And like Chauncey Billups with the Denver Nuggets, like his first game against the Detroit Pistons, the Nuggets whomped them. The Nuggets whomped the Pistons. Like you just always get a little extra angry about that. I don't necessarily see Jalen Duren getting a Finals MVP or being a Hall of Famer. I mean, if he wins 2 championships and he's a starting center, he'll probably be a Hall of Famer if that ever happened. But just kind of disappointing it's not with the Detroit Pistons. The next player we're going to talk about is Jaden Ivey and bold predictions for Jaden Ivey from AI. And guys, this one's a little trigger warning, so be ready and make sure to comment below your thoughts. Jaden's prediction is he will be out of the league at 32, but a legend in China. Ivey's athleticism declines by 30, and he fails to adjust his game. He thrives as a megastar in the Chinese Basketball Association, breaking scoring records and earning a statue outside of Guangzhou Arena. Hey, he gets a statue.
Yeah.
Hey, that's not that bad. Ryan, what are your thoughts and Jaden Ivey not being able to keep up with his athleticism?
I don't know about that. I mean, maybe, but I don't see Jaden Ivey having a Marbury type career.
Right,
Now
right.
Marbury was great, but like I don't know if I see that out of Ji because like okay,
It's
the
just wild.
fibula right now, maybe something happens there, but I doubt it. It's just a broken bone, and you can come back from a broken bone.
Oh yeah.
But no, I don't know if I see that out of Jaden Ivey at all. I think if anything, he's going to be playing at a high level for a long time,
Yeah.
but it doesn't really go anywhere. But he just has a good, solid NBA career, and that's about it. That's like the minimum of what I could see out of Jaden Ivey. And that's not a bad thing. If you can have a like solid NBA career, you're doing something the right way. But otherwise, I think that has to be the minimum for him. I don't know if I see him retiring because of his athletic ability. I don't think that that's going to happen at all. The only way that happens is if he completely blows out his knee and he just can't walk or something like that, because he's just out of this world athletic. So I think his athletic ability right now, even with the fibula, I think you could, even with the post surgery, I think he could be out there decently speed walking, honestly. So I think he'll be fine at low level, potential, a good solid NBA player. But I think it's going to be better than that. And I know you think it's going to be better than that.
Yeah.
And even though this little setback with the fibula is happening, I think he's still going to just bounce back even harder and come playing in at another level.
And I will say this bold prediction of, Jaden Ivey not being able to keep up with his athleticism is bad timing due to the injury. But I see him making a good comeback. The last player we're going to be talking about, the long-awaited bold prediction of Cade Cunningham. And I may say this is a good one. Cade Cunningham's prediction is he will be a top 5 player in the league, but ringless. Cade racks up MVPs and all-star first team selections, but critics hound him for being a stats guy who never gets over that playoff hump. Pistons fans will argue he deserved better teammates, but the rest of the NBA will roast him as the modern day Tracy McGrady. Very in-depth the AI got with these bold predictions. I personally see a championship in Cade Cunningham's future, whether it's with the Detroit Pistons or not, I'm unsure, but I see him playing on some very good basketball teams just off his skill alone. Ryan, thoughts?
Honestly, Tracy McGrady is not a bad player at all. So if you're getting compared to him,
I also agree with that.
That's great. But do I see a championship with Cade? Yes. Now, I would go as far to agree with you. If not the Pistons, it's someone else. He's at least going to win one championship. He's not going to be Chris Paul, where Chris Paul just doesn't win a championship. But I do see one championship out of Cade at least minimum. I don't know about 5 MVPs. I think that's a little bold. I think at minimum for MVPs, probably one, if one. Just because if he is in Detroit for the rest of his career, it's quite literally Detroit versus everybody and everything. So like you go back to Isaiah Thomas. Isaiah Thomas isn't winning multiple MVPs, even though he should. He's not going to. Same with going to work Pistons with Chauncey Billups, Ben Wallace, etc. All those guys could have, like Ben Wallace, my goodness, multiple Defensive Player of the Year awards, and yet doesn't have an MVP. Like, I don't know about that one. He just didn't have the offensive scoring ability that a lot of others had, but defensively he was there. But if Cade were to be with the Pistons for the rest of his career, I see the one championship still happening, one MVP at least still happening. But otherwise, multi-time All-Star, a very good player, a very good career. As far as if he were to leave the Pistons, I think he maybe not 5 MVPs, but at least 2 MVPs. Maybe at least not 1 ring, probably 2 rings. It all depends on what happens within the next at least 5 seasons, because this is 10 years from now. What's to happen in the next 5 years with the Pistons? Who knows? Maybe they win a championship. I could see it. I mean, at the rate we're on right now, sitting at what, 6, 7, around that ballpark right now, 500 for the first time in forever. Like, who's to say we couldn't? The sky isn't the limit. So, just throwing that out there.
That will do it for today's episode. Make sure to comment below your thoughts on all these bold predictions from AI. I was very amused by them all. I thought they were all a lot of fun. And how descriptive they got. Make sure to like and subscribe once again, and we will see you guys in the next episode. Peace.